Okay, this is one video, that's all I'm going to make it. This one I go through the 4 problems, you just go through them with me, okay? And this one here, you're going to do the examples, and then you have 4 to do on the back, okay? It says 5, 6, 7, 8, but I obviously didn't put any problems, so you don't have to do them. Now, I want to review this right here, okay? So I've got, in the parentheses, these, I've circled the exponents, so you just kind of ignore those. So 4 to x is multiplication, x to y, 2 to x, x to y. Okay, now I've written down all the bases. I had a 4, a 2, and then the variables I have are x and y. Okay, so you see those written down for you. All right, now, this is how I would like this done for future, okay? So look at your 4. Go find your big 4 right there. It's to the first power, but it's in a parentheses, and outside the parentheses is a 3. So anything in here, any power I get in here has to be multiplied by 3. So again, what's 1 times 3? 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, and that's going to be my power on the 4. Now go find your big 2. It's right here. Now it's to the 1, but there's in a parentheses with a 4 outside, so I got to take 1 times 4. 1 times 4. I'm not going to draw those rainbows, okay? All right, now, x's. Now there's 2 x's. I have an x here and an x here, okay? It's multiplication, so it will be a plus operation. So we have x a second, but again, I have to distribute 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And then when I go find the other x, it's to the 4th, okay? And it's 4 times 4, and that's 16. Now 6 plus 16 is 22, so cross that out and just put 22. So you know x is to the 22nd power. Okay, now y, how many y's are there? I have a y here and a y here. So the y to the 3rd, again, I got to distribute 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Plus, because it's multiplication, and then 2 times 4 is going to be 8. And 9 plus 8 is 17. You add those. Okay, now, I replace this and this. I can't replace these. Those are variables. So 4 to the 3rd would be 4 times 4 times 4. And 2 to the 4th would be 4 2's multiplied together. So that's 64 because you're timesing them, and then I times these, and that's 16. So I replace 4 to the 3rd with 64, and I replace 2 to the 4th with 16. And then I don't replace the variables. I just write times x to the 22nd power times y to the 17th. Now we should multiply these. We need to multiply. So 64 times 16. 1,024. That's the answer. Okay, my next problem. This one's a little bit different, okay, than you're used to. I have 3, a big 3 from there, a big 2 right there. And then the variables I have are C and D. I don't worry about all the circled numbers, okay? Now I'm going to start worrying about them now that I have all the bases down. So go find your big 3. It's to the 1. But there's in a parentheses and outside's a 3. So we have to take 1 times 3. That's 3. Now, the 2 is to the 1, but you see how there's no parentheses around that 2? So we're going to keep it to the 1 power. We're not going to multiply here. See, that 3 was in a parentheses with a power, so I take 1 times 3. But this 2 is not in a parentheses, so I just take the power, write down the power that's there. All right, now C, I have a C right here. That's the only C I have, so there's no plus that we need. It's to the 2nd, but it's in parentheses with a 3 outside, so I take 2 times 3, and that's 6. Now D's, I have 2 D's multiplied, and that's going to be plus. So I take 4 times 3. Again, it's in a parentheses, so we got to distribute these, and that's 12. There's another D here to the 2nd, and it's not, there's no parentheses around that D, so I just write the 2nd power down. And 12 plus 2 is 14. Okay, so I can replace these two. So 3 to the third, I would clone 3 3s and multiply them, and that's 27. Now 2 to the first is just 2. Okay, so I replace 3 to the third with 27, and I replace 2 to the first with 2 times c to the 6th times d to the 14th. And then we multiply those. 27 times 2 is 54. 54 times c to the 6th power times d to the 14th power. Okay, next problem. Sorry, you can't see these. I'll tell you what they are. This is a 3 here. Okay, so I have 5. Notice how I've written 5 down just once, though. Okay, there are 2 big 5s here. Okay, and then big 2's, I have a 2. And then for variables, I have x and y. Okay, so 5. There are 2 big 5's now multiplied together, so I'm going to do a plus. So 5, I have a 1. There's a parenthesis, so we got to take 1 times 3. 1 times 3. That's 3. And then I go to this 5, and that's to the 1, but there's a 4 outside the parentheses, and then 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, so 3 plus 4 is 7. 5 to the 7th power. Okay, now big 2's, I just have this one right here. That's the only one I have. So it's to the 1, but there's a parentheses around it. So what's 1 times 2? That's a 2. 1 times 2. 1 times 2. That's 2. Okay, x's for letters. Again, count how many x's you have. You have 1, 2, 3. All multiplied, so we're going to write, there's going to be 2 pluses. So let's look at the first x. I've got 1, 3. 1, 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus, go on to your next x, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And there's a third x, so I need another plus. Okay? 2, 4. 2, 4. What's 2 times 4? That's 8. So what's 3 plus 2 plus 8? Well, 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 8 is 13. So x is to the 13th power. And then y, I have a y here, nothing there, and then a y here. So that's just 1 plus. So 1 to 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus 3 times 4 is 12. So 3 plus 12 is 15. Okay, now we replace these because those are bases. 5 to the 7th. I don't really feel like right now it's 7 5s and multiply them, so I go 5, and this is your power button right here. So upside down V, 5 to the 7th power. It's going to be a huge answer. 78,125. So I replace this with 78,125 times, and then 2 to the 2nd. That's easy. It's just 2 2's. That's 4, so I replace that with 4. Then I can't replace my variables, so times x to the 13th times y to the 15th. Okay, and then we need to figure out that product there. So 78,125 times 4, 312,500. Okay, next problem. My big numbers, the ones that aren't circled, I have 3 and 11. And then for variables, I have x and y. So 3, find your big 3. It's to the first, but it's surrounded by parentheses, so I got to take 1 times that 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, and that's the only big 3 I have. Again, those circled numbers aren't bases, okay, so those don't count. And then I have a big 11. It's to the 1. 1 times 2. What's 1 times 2? That's 2. X's. I have an x here and an x here. So 2 times 3. That's 6. Plus 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. Okay, and then y. I have y here and y here. So I take 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. You got to add, and that's 5 times 2, that's 10. 3 plus 10 is 13. Okay, so 3 to the 3rd, I can clone 3 3's, and that multiplies to 27. So I replace the 3 to the 3rd power with its equal of 27. 11 to the second would be 2 11s multiplied, and that equals 121. So this is replaced with 121 times x to the 12th times y to the 13th. Okay, now find that product. 27 times 121 is 3,267. Again, if it's in parentheses, you need to take its exponent times the one that's there. Now, that will be handed in. I will be looking at that. I did it pretty much for you. Now, the other one, the problems aren't near as long, but it's a little bit different. X to the 6th divided by x to the 4th. Now, remember how division works, okay? I'm going to clone 6 x's. And then on the bottom of the line, I'm going to clone 4 x's. And the line means divide, so that means we can cancel out x to x. Now, how many x's are left? 2, so it'd be x to the 2nd. Now, I don't want to do that on every problem, so the way to do it is write x down, and we have a 6. Now, it's division. One's on top, one's on bottom. It's division. So instead of plus, you're going to minus, okay? And 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's the quick way to get the x to the 2nd. All right, now here's the problem. We're not doing anything on the back side, okay? All right, yeah, I will look at that problem on the back side. X to the 3rd divided by x to the 2nd, and then that's all to the 4th. So I write x down. That's the only base I have. And let's look at the first x. There's a parenthesis surrounding it. The parenthesis surrounds both the top and bottom. So this 4 has to be multiplied not only here, but here as well. So let's look at top. 3. I need to take 3 times 4. What's 3 times 4? 12. Now the other x is on the bottom of the line, so that stands for division. So instead of plus, I'm going to minus. That was nice. And we have x to the 2nd. But again, the parentheses is around that as well. Okay? So you still need to take the 2 times the 4. What's 2 times 4? That's 8. So 12 minus 8 is 4. So x to the 4th power is the answer. Now, here's what the problems are like. When you see the fraction line, and you're actually going to end up doing this on all problems now, you're going to make 2 lines, okay, line and line. And I've got a 6 times an x and a 5 times an x. And this is a 2 outside here. It's a 2, okay? You can't really see it. It's 2. Now, we need to just make sure the 6 and the 5, everything in here has an exponent. So the only exponent I see is a 4th power, so that means the 6 gets a 1. The 5 gets a 1. Put a 1 there. I know it's a tight fit, but it's 5 to the 1. Then x to the 1. Okay? Make sure all those have exponents to distribute. So, on top, you have 6 and x. Okay? Put 6 times x on top. And on the bottom, you have a 5 and then another x, but I don't write x again. If I put it on top, we're not going to write it again on the bottom. Okay? 6 times x. 6 times x and then 5 and then another x, but I already have that. Okay, let's look at our 6. We have a 1, but you got to multiply the 1 by 2. What's 1 times 2? It's 2. Now you have 2 x's, but they're being divided, so we're going to subtract. But let's do the top x first. It's to the 4th, but there's a parentheses around it, and everything in that parentheses to the 2nd. So 4 times 2 is 8. So write 8 down, 4 times 2. Then the other x is on bottom, so we minus, okay? And that's to the 1, but you still got to take 1 times 2. Everything's times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. So 8 minus 2. What's 8 minus 2? That's 6. Okay, and then 5. Now 5's to the 1, so we take 1 times 2. 1 times 2. What's 1 times 2? Well, that's 2. Okay, remember that 2 has to be distributed to everything in here. Okay, so I replaced the 6 to the second and the 5 to the second. You can't replace the x. So 6 to the second would be 2 6s. That's 36. And the 5 to the second would be 2 5s, and that's 25. So I replace the 6 to the second with 36. Now I go under the line, because that's where the 5 to the second was at, and I replace that with 25. Okay? And then times x to the 8th, the 6 on top. Okay? Now, what do you do with 36 and 25? You don't multiply them, but don't actually divide them. Here's what you do. You go 36 ABC, okay? ABC button, 25. Okay, and I get this U here. I don't like the U. So what you do is hit the second key in ABC. And then all this crap comes up and you just hit equals. Okay, so that'll stay 36 over 25. I don't change that. That's the answer. Okay, next problem. So I have 10 times x and 3 times x. So I put 10 and 3. And then since I have x on top and bottom, I just put it on top. Okay, now your 10. Let's talk about the 10. It needs a power, so we put a 1 there. And then I take 1 times 3. That would be 3. Now do your 3. 3 needs a power. It'd be a 1 power. Okay? And then 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now let's do our variable. There's 2 of them, but they're being divided. So first look at the top. You have 3. You got to take 3 times 3. That's 9. And then minus, because then we're on the bottom of the line. Okay, it's division. And that 2 has to be times by 3. So 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And then 9 minus 6 is 3. Okay, now 10 to the third, that would be 10 times 10 times 10. That equals 1,000. Then 3 to the third, because we got to replace those two. So 3 times 3 times 3, and that's 27. Okay, so the top is 1,000, and this turns into 27. You got to make sure you put that on bottom. Times x to the third. Now again, you're not going to times these two. You're going to do the ABC. So 1,000. Because what I'm doing with the ABC is seeing if it reduces. Okay. I don't like that U, so after that comes up, hit second, and then ABC, and then equals. Second ABC equals. Okay, it's the same thing, 1,000 over 27, so that's the answer. Okay, next problem. So again, I have 8 times x on top, 4 times x on bottom. So I want to put the 8 and the 4 down. And the only variable I have, x, we want to just put that on top. Okay. So let's look at the 8. 8 needs a power, it'd be to the 1. Okay. And so I take 1 times 3. If it's in a parentheses, you got to take the exponents that's there and multiply by the outer exponent. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now let's do our 4. Now 4 needs a power. It's to the 1. Okay. But it's in the parentheses, so you got to take 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now look at your x's. Look at the top one first. You see a 2 there, but again, you got to take 2 times 3. 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And the other x is on bottom, so I minus. Okay, I need a power on it, so it's a 1. I take 1 times 3. Okay, so 6 minus 3 is 3. So 8 to the third is 3/8 multiplied, and that equals 512. And then we do the 4 because we can replace those two. And that's 64. So replace that with 512, replace that with 64. And then the x to the third can't be replaced. Okay. Now I want you to not divide 512 ABC 64, and I got 8. Okay, I didn't get the U. Okay. So what I need to do is cross these both out. Since I got something different, I cross them both out. and put that 8 on the top, okay? If you just get one whole number, just put it on top. Cross them out, put them on the 8 on top. Okay, next problem. So my large numbers are 5 and 2. So I put 5 and 2. Then my variable is x, okay? So just on top. So 5 is to the 1 power, and I take 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Now do your 2. 2 would be to the 1, okay? So 1 times 3 is 3. Now the x's, we have two different x's. Do the top first. 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And then minus, because it's division, 2 times 3 is 6. And again, 9 minus 6 is 3. Okay, so 5 to the third, that would mean 5 times 5 times 5, and that's 125. And then the bottom, 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8. Okay, so I replace these. That's 125, and then the bottom's 8, and then the x to the third stays the same. Now again, do the ABC with 125 and 8. 125, ABC, 8. Okay, I got that U in there, okay? So I go second, ABC equals. Do that on your calculator. It's the same thing, okay? So if it's the same thing, I have my answer. See here, when I did the ABC, it wasn't the same thing. I just got 8, so I put 8 on top. Okay, next problem. So the leading coefficients are 5 and 4 times x. And that little 2 there, that's a power, so I don't write that down yet. So 5. 5 is to the 1, and I've got to distribute the 3 to the 1. What's 3 times 1? That's 3. I don't want to draw the rainbows anymore because it gets too cluttered and I can't see it very well. Now do the 4. 4 is to the 1, 4 to the first power, but again, you take 1 times 3, that's 3. Okay, now let's look at our x's. First, we have an x a second, so I take 2 times 3, that's 6. Then divide would be minus. That x there, okay, it needs a power, so b to the 1. So 1 times 3 is 3. So 6 minus 3 is 3. So 5 to the third, that would be 5 times 5 times 5, and that equals 125. And the bottom, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So I replace these two things. 125, 64 times x to the third on top. Now, again, ABC that. 125, ABC, 64. Again, if the U comes up like it does, that's a mixed number. I don't want to write that down. Hit second, ABC equals. So it's 125 over, there you go. Okay, the leading coefficients are 3 and 5, so I have 3 over 5, and then I have the x variable. Okay, let's do 3 first. 3 needs a power, b to the 1, so we take 1 times 3. 1 times 3. 3 is distributed to 1. Anything that comes out of there needs to be multiplied by the third power outside. Okay, then I got 5. 5 would be to the 1, and I take 1 times 3. 1 times 3, that's 3. Okay, now let's do the x's. First, look at your x. 6 times 3, that's 18. 6 times 3. You times those. Minus, because now it's the x is under the x, so it means it's being divided. There's a 2 there, so I take 2 times 3, and that's 6. Okay, 18 minus 6 is 12. Okay, so I need to replace these two. I can't replace the x, so 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Okay, so that's 27 on top, 125 on the bottom. Remember to know where it came from, times x to the 12th power. Okay, so I'm going to ABC 27, ABC 125. Okay, I didn't get the U, so I don't need to do that second, but it's the same thing. 27 over 125 means it doesn't reduce. That's the answer. Okay, next. My leading coefficients are 7 and 4. And then we have the x variable. The rest of the numbers are powers. I don't need them. These are my bases. So 7 is to the 1, so I take 1 times 3, that's 3. 4 is to the 1, and I take 1 times 3, and that's 3. Okay, there's 2 x's, okay? So I take 3 times 3, that's 9, and then I'm going to minus, because the next x is on the bottom. It's on the bottom, that means dividing, so you subtract, okay? So again, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 3. 9 minus 6 then is 3. Okay, so 7 to the third. That'd be 7 times 7 times 7. That's 343. 4 to the third. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So the top, 343. 64 on bottom. Okay, and then times x to the third. So you got to ABC that. Don't times them, because that means division. But I don't really want to actually divide. I just want to reduce the fraction. That's what ABC does. Okay, I got U. I don't want to write that. So second ABC. And it's exactly the same. 343 over 64. Okay, last one. I've got 8 and 3. And then times x. So 8 would be to the 1 power, so 1 times 3 is 3. The 3 would be to the 1 power. And again, it's in all this crap's in parentheses with that third power outside, so 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now let's look at the x's. Do the top first. Top first. Okay, so 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Then I minus. I don't add if it's under the line because it's being divided. That x is to the 1. If it doesn't have a power, it's that easy. You put a 1 there and take your 1 times 3. It's 3. 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, 8 to the third. 8 times 8 times 8 is 512. And then I can replace that. That's 27. What you're doing is simplifying it. So that's 512, and then 27, and then times x to the third. Okay, so I go 512 ABC, okay, 27. Okay, I see the U there, so I go second, ABC equals, and it's the same thing, 512 over 27, so I don't need to actually do anything. Okay, that's all I have to say. You got 4 to do.